Hey songwriters, there is literally one common mistake that is ruining your songs, and it's stopping them from being as good as they truly can be. And it's stopping you from connecting with listeners in the way that you really want. But ultimately, it's stopping you from being the best songwriter that you can be. Now, I know this because I've made the same mistake countless times. And after mentoring over 3,000 songwriters, I've seen this same mistake come up time and time again. And the scary thing is that most songwriters don't realize they're actually making it. So in this video, I'm going to share with you exactly what the mistake is, the problem it creates when you're songwriting, and a simple technique that can transform your songwriting and help overcome it. Hey, Danny here, founder of Songwriters International. If you're new to the channel, welcome. We help songwriters develop their songwriting skills by sharing tips, tricks, and techniques on all things songwriting. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing. So let's dive on into this. Now, the mistake is that you start writing the song before you've actually figured out what you're trying to write. Now that might sound obvious, but so many songwriters make this exact mistake. They'll find a nice chord progression or a nice title or a phrase or a lyric, and then they'll just start writing. And then they write line 1, line 2, verse 1 is finished, then they go into the chorus, and before they know it, they're in verse 2. And you might be saying, well, Danny, that's great, but the problem is they've never taken the time to actually figure out what they were trying to say in the first place, apart from just maybe a few words. And yes, they've got a feeling, they've got an idea, but they haven't clearly defined how they want to communicate that to the listener. And they haven't decided what they want the listener to think, feel, or understand by the time that that listener reaches the end of the song. And in all honesty, they're hoping that the song kind of finds its own way and its own path. And yes, sometimes that can work, but other times it doesn't. So do you want a process that 20% of the time it might work, 50% of the time it might, and 30% you end up not finishing a song? And I want to put it to you like this. Imagine driving a car, and if you got in that car and you had no destination, no route, no plan, you might eventually end up somewhere interesting. But there's also a good chance that you might drive around in circles, be stuck, and find yourself in a place that you never actually wanted to be. And that's exactly what's happening in the songwriting process. You start with a vague idea as to what the song should be about, perhaps a chord progression, but then from there's actually no direction and there's no intention behind each lyric. And then halfway you hit a wall, you hit a block, and you wonder why it happened. And you'll find that you'll get stuck with this method because you've written yourself into a corner. And it's not because you're a bad songwriter. It's because you never planned the way that you wanted the song to go in the first place, and then land your way into a half-written song, a song that didn't communicate what you wanted to say, and then you end up getting stuck somewhere in that process. So what is the solution, and how can we overcome this urge to write the song straight away and just spend a few moments to quite literally save us hours later on in the process? So I've developed a simple framework which is called the PPS system, which stands for planning, preparation, and songwriting. I've taught this to so many songwriters, and as I've mentioned, it's transformed my songwriting and it's transformed many others, and I can be pretty sure to say it's going to help you along the process. So let me share it with you. So first of all, we start with the planning stage, and as I've mentioned, this is only designed to take you 5 to 10 minutes. It's not designed to take you hours planning out a song. I know you want to get into the songwriting process, so I want to keep this stage as short as possible. So we go ahead and we find the chord progression, or we find the phrase, we find the title, we find that piece of information or quote from the internet. I don't mind what idea it is, but then we take that idea, and before we start running with it, before we start writing, we actually plan the song out. And the best question that you can ask yourself at this stage of the songwriting process is, what is the song all about? What is the point of the song? Or an alternative way that you could put this is, what do you want the listener to think, feel, or understand by the time they've reached the end of the song? Because if you haven't asked these questions before you start writing, it's like building a house without a foundation. Let's just say, for simple example, we've got a title or a phrase which says, I can't be without you. Now we have to work our way backwards. What does that actually mean? Is it a lifelong partner? Is it a breakup song? Is it a friend that has just moved away? Is it a family member who has passed? You need to clearly identify that before we proceed onwards. Now into the next stage, which is the actual preparation to write. So we've planned out the overall concept. We know what we want to say. Now we're going to actually break that into chunks. And what I mean by that is, let's say you have a typical structure of a verse 1 into a chorus, into a verse 2, a second chorus, a bridge, and then a final chorus. What we're going to do before we write any of that song, we are going to get clear on what the actual parts of the song are going to say. So let's just say, for example, that title we had before of I Can't Be Without You is a simple love song. It's a breakup, two people have been apart, one of them can't be without the other. So verse 1 might actually lend itself to talk about to the listener about how it got there, the breakup. What happened? How long were they together? How did it lead to them breaking up? The chorus then will just say the central point of the song. I can't be without you. I'm lost without you. Verse 2 might be the other person's perspective as to how they feel and why they cannot come back to you. And you can see there, just in 30 seconds with a quick brainstorm, we have solved one of the biggest problems, which is writer's block. Because writer's block is oftentimes where nobody knows what they want to say. They get stuck at a point in a song, they can't go any further. And now we know what each part is responsible for, which allows us to actually know what we want to write. So if we know that verse 1 is going to talk about the breakup, our lyrics are going to be centered around that topic. So we could say where it happened, how it happened, was it over text, was it in person, and that's going to actually be able to write the lyric. And one really important tip I want you to take away from this is when you are writing that chorus, the chorus is going to be whatever the main topic of the song is. If our song is about moving away because we want to explore the world, that's going to be the chorus. That's going to be the central point. If the song is about losing somebody, that's going to be the central point of the chorus. And then everything else leads up to that chorus. And a lot of songwriters think planning actually kills creativity, that it puts you into a box that you can't get out of. But the truth is, what it actually does is speeds up your process and allows you to come up with your ideas a lot quicker. And the thing about the planning and preparation stage is that it's not designed to put you into that box. If you want to navigate a little bit outside of the overall plan that you've written, go ahead. All it is designed to do is to give you some guidance, give you some support through that process so that you don't get stuck. So next time you write, just take 5 minutes to actually figure out what on earth this song is about, and I can guarantee you it will save you so much time later on in the process. So now that you've planned out your song, now that you've done the preparation, now you want to songwrite. And I've put together a video specifically on how to write lyrics. Because stage 1 is planning out the song. That's great, but now you've got to deliver the story in a way that actually intrigues our listener. So go ahead, around here you'll see a video specifically I've put together on how to write great lyrics that captivate your listeners.